Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I'm your host, David Strege, and here in the room, I have a Mr. John Davies from Sinema Obscura. Hello.
Hello, hello.
And a Mr. David Black from Melbourne, Australia, if I'm correct.
You are correct. G'day out there.
So, John, Mr. Davies, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came about in creating your company, Cinema Obscura?
All right. Yeah. Kind of start. Well, first off, I'm in Chicago,
Okay.
Illinois, United States. Welcome to the Terror Dome. Yeah. Cinema Obscura started off as a movie watching club that I was part of, just hanging out, watching obscure movies, and then it morphed into this thing that it is, which is a 1,000-member organization designed to get people aware of each other, independent filmmakers, people that make music videos, the musicians that are in them, comedians, pretty much anybody in the DIY scene. And we've, recently spanned the globe, and we've got David Black under our wing now, which is awesome.
Okay. And what is it exactly that Cinema Obscura does for the DIY community? What services do you provide?
The number one goal that we have is to make these filmmakers aware of each other.
Okay.
Making independent films is extremely difficult, and I want to give them as many shortcuts as possible to continue doing what they're doing.
Okay.
Getting them aware of each other so that they can help scout locations, share directing ideas, share crew members. We do a couple of live shows throughout the city here. We have a television show on local public access. So we're expanding. The snowball's starting to roll. I'm pretty excited about it.
Very cool. Now, which theaters do you technically use for these live shows that you were talking about?
Well, we're in a few places right now. We're at Logan Theater,
okay,
which is here in Chicago on Milwaukee Avenue. We're also sharing a space with the new 400 Theater, which is way up north, still here in Chicago. But they have a space called the 6740 Micro, and it's a nice little law space. We've had a couple of events, and it's going pretty well. We've also got a spot at Uncommon Ground, which is a restaurant up north also. So we're kind of spread out throughout the city here.
Okay. Very cool. Now, as far as public access, how did you acquire some spots there?
That just literally fell into my lap. One of the directors, one of the filmmakers involved with the group, Miss Ava Threlkel, Nancy, love you. How you doing? She worked with or had some previous experience with CAN TV, which is the television channel that we're on, and she just came to me and was like, "Hey, why don't we go on TV?" And I was like, "Hey, okay, let's do it." So we together went down there and filled out some paperwork, and what is it, 6 months later, we've got 16 hours of crazy short films, music videos, animation, documentaries, everything running the gamut on late night television, but we're still on television, so it's kind of awesome.
Very cool. So now, though we have one of the filmmakers on the show tonight that you are working with, how many other directors that have you had passed through your show? From what I understand, you're working on your fourth series.
I'm right now. I'm compiling the third series. And yeah, there are literally hundreds of people involved in this thing. The first series we had about 36 filmmakers and about 70 films.
Okay.
The second series, while there are a couple of repeats, has 70 plus filmmakers and 100 plus films, and it is absolutely crazy. And that's just the television show. There's I don't even know what the number is, honestly. There's hundreds of people involved with this.
Are there any prominent people that you can mention while you're here on the air that you would like to mention that you have worked with?
Well, I mean, every single one of them are prominent. I don't want to pick anybody, but I have worked closely with. I've worked very closely with Johnny Lang and Lost Child Films. We've worked on, man, like a dozen different projects together. He's had me behind the camera as a boom mic, PA, what have you. I've been in front of the camera as an actor. I've also done a lot of work with Mikey Moratini and Mordacious Films. Between the two of them, I've been both, like I said, in front of and behind the camera. And a lot of this stuff is new to me, so it's really awesome. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, those two people. There are so many other people out there.
Totally understand. I figured I'd give you a little bit of a leeway to talk about whatever you wanted to before I
appreciate that. But yeah, we've got Poolside Party Line. We've got Trust This Ghost, who's our musician, who puts the music together for the TV show. We've got TTM Films, who does a lot of our artwork and bumpers and animation. We've got, like I said, Ava Threlkel is here. We've got Billy Smith, who is not a filmmaker, but he's one of the artists. He came up with the Sinema Obscura logo with the teeth and the alien. And I could go on, but David Black, how you doing? Good morning, sir. Good afternoon. Good evening.
So, since you gave Mr. David Black an introduction, Mr. Black, why don't you tell me first where you are from and how you got involved with Sinema Obscura and how you got involved in filmmaking yourself?
Well, I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I think I contacted John first because he's got the cinemas going. And I was just starting to get my film shown in cinemas in the United States and also England. And from there, John's also doing the TV show. So I think the TV show came second. As for how I got into the films myself, it's I was making music videos for I think about the last 11 years, but I didn't think of myself in making the music videos as being part of the movie industry. I wasn't connected with it at all. But for my band, we were doing that and we were playing live, and then I got cancer. And basically that just knocked me out for quite some time with the chemotherapy. And I was managing to make a music video a year, but I'd lost all of my energy. The band couldn't play live. And my plan was just to do a music video a year. And a fella that I knew from another band contacted me and said, would you like to be an extra in my feature movie called Cult Girls? I had no idea that this guy was actually a really big name in filmmaking. His name's Mark Bacchitis. And I just knew him from the bands. And I rocked up to his set and I thought, oh my God, I mean, there's lights that are 30 foot tall, there's dollies, there's cranes, there's this was just so different to the smaller crews that I was working with. And from there I just started meeting everybody in the industry. Was like, although I'm this background extra with a mask on my face, I think they realized that I knew how to act because I've had about 30 years on stage. So I started getting invited to being an extra in all of their movies. One thing led to another, and I ended up making them.
Okay. Sounds very, very cool. So, why don't you tell me about one of your productions called Dark Night of the Zombies?
Oh, Dark Night of the Zombies. Believe it or not, is there any such thing as a film that is planned just as a throwaway film?
There can be. A film that that you probably make as a back burner that
Well,
probably you don't think it's going to make anything, but you just make it to make it.
well, this is sort of different. Uh, John will identify with this because he runs movie nights. There was a movie night called Boogie Nights that was running in Melbourne, just a short movie night every couple of months, and they just showed um, a lot of filmmakers' work. And on their first one, the night was packed out. It was just a small room that only fit 60 anyway. But 2 months later, the second night, there was maybe 40 people. The next one, it was down to like 20. And the guy that was running it, he'd been the armorer that I'd met on Cult Girls. And he said, oh, I'm going to have to pack this up. And I said, you know, whenever you do a film and you ask for extras, you get hordes of them. Let's just tell them we're doing a film and get everybody in as extras. And he didn't quite understand the concept. And my script really just said, zombies attack, zombies eat everybody. This is the aftermath. And we got the horde of zombies, and I was the makeup artist. I went and spent $2 on what do you call it, moisturizer. So I moisturized everybody. I had baby powder, and I just went woof 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 in each person's face. Got out the blush brush, darkened the eyes, got out the lipstick, put the black lipstick on, and brought a whole heap of props because Darkness Visible, being a gothic rock band, was theatrical. So I had bags and bags and bags of body parts and stuff. And that's exactly what we filmed. And technically, the movie was probably never going to get edited or come out, but it did get edited. And some people in India contacted me and they said, we'd like to do the soundtrack for this. And they sent me their work, and they're actually doing stuff that looked like Hollywood.
Huh.
And I checked and I double checked and I triple checked with them, and I said, are you sure you really want to do this? You've got a professional studio. You guys are fantastic. And I said, look, we only have to show that we can work remotely with someone in the West, and we can use that and then start getting work where it pays, because it obviously doesn't pay as much doing the work locally in India. So I said yes, and because they did such a brilliant soundtrack, the thing took off. It's actually got no vocals in it at all. It's just their soundtrack as zombies attack and everything, and they really kicked it off. It can go out anywhere because there's no language.
Totally understand about that. Just so you're aware, Mr. Davis, I'm going to go through a series of titles that, with Mr. Black here. So, yeah. Why don't you tell me about the project Cannibal Barbecue? How did you get involved with that film?
Oh, that's another crazy story. A lot of the people in the indie movie industry have ideas of how a film should be done. What we did on Dark Night of the Zomboogies is the opposite of everything that they believe. What we did on Cannibal Barbecue took us like 3 steps further. I mean, what had happened was, before we did Cannibal Barbecue, this guy contacts me and says, I need an actor for a film. And he told me my friend Anastasia had suggested that I'd be the actor. So I said, yep. And I just cut him short, and I didn't hear the rest of what he was saying, which I learned later, that he's got over 1 million YouTube subscribers and like 2.5 million people on Facebook, and similar for every other platform. And so I'm just expecting that I'm just doing a favor for a friend. And these guys rock up, and their script is as bad as the script that I did for Dark Night of the Zomboogies. And they've got this skit that they want me to do. So I just did it at the front door. And I noticed that they've got one camera, no soundy. They just rocked up, and it was really badly done. and they're editing on the fly as they came to my place and editing in their car on the way out. And within 6 hours, it went up on YouTube and it's got 18,000 views. And I thought, I bet you I could do the same thing. And Cannibal Barbecue was just planned that we would shoot for 4 hours, edit it over a weekend, and chuck it up onto YouTube and see what happens. And that's what clicked me off into realizing that everything everybody else is doing that they're not having success with, well, there's other ideas. They're wrong. I mean, people waste a whole day and a half trying to format their scripts. Then they waste time doing the call sheets. Then they have to do all of these little things just for one day shoot. And I thought, well, there's a waste of time. Cut out everything that doesn't involve actually filming and acting. And people are still horrified that I'm doing that, but everything's going out on these anthologies through Troma and Body Bag Films. They're now getting onto the television. They've all got 1,000 to 2,000 views on YouTube, with the exception of Cannibal Barbecue, that's getting something like 500 views a day and just keeps going up. And
I'm looking at it right now. 46,620 views. Good job.
Yeah, it's doing its own job. So I just realized we're in a different world. That old world of where you wanted to create your masterpiece, you put everything you've got into it, and then you put it into the film festivals. That world is dead. When people were actually putting their stuff in film festivals, and then buyers were there, and you had a chance of selling your short and getting the money, saying, look, this is a proof of concept because I want to do a feature. Those days are dead. There's no longer 20 film festivals. There's 7,500. People are spending $2,000 to enter as a whole heap of film festivals, getting themselves 30 or 40 laurels. And the whole time they're doing that, their film can't be seen anywhere else. They can't put it on YouTube. When the people rock up to see these at the cinema, they're usually half-empty cinemas that are just full of people that are only interested in their own film. So you watch on the short film nights, there's 100 people there, and the first short film gets shown, and 6 peel off, and the second one gets shown, and 10 more leave. And if you're last on the bill, you're the only one there, and nobody was interested in your film in the first place.
I've noticed some of the same. It's like some of the local festivals here. Only the local people go to see their local films, and it's like maybe an actor or a director will show up to the film festival. So it's kind of crazy, you know. I mean, you want your film to get out there and seen, and you got these festivals want you to pay so much into them. So,
you know, the craziest thing about it all is I accidentally contacted somebody that was a film buyer on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has got all of these press buttons where you don't really talk to people. It just says at the bottom, like I just said, hi, thanks for accepting the friend request, which is a push button. I didn't type it. And the person answered back. And then the next thing, I'm just pressing the buttons. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm actually talking to this guy that is the top film buyer for, he was ex-Warner Brothers, and his name was all online. I won't give it away.
Yeah.
But as he was chatting to me, he let me know that they buy the films before they go to Cannes. You know how people think they're putting their movie in at Cannes,
okay,
and they're going to attract a buyer. That was 30 years ago. Nowadays, if it's the American film market or if it's Cannes, etc., the people have already talked to the people, to the filmmakers, for 6-8 months ahead of time, and they've already made the purchase. And the only reason why you're putting it at Cannes is because there's a slew of media there. So you will never get better publicity than to say, at Warner Brothers, we just bought this and that was shown at Cannes.
Hold that thought for a moment. I'm going to go back to Mr. Davies now. With your live shows at the cinemas, how is your turnout at some of these events that you put on through these series?
They're honestly, they're all over the place. You know, sometimes we get 50 to 60 people in a tiny room and it looks crazy and it looks like I'm, you know, a magician doing all this. And, you know, occasionally it's myself and, you know, my girlfriend, and that's it. So it literally goes all over the place when it comes to attendance.
Okay.
You know, especially in this city, you know, I've learned not to even try doing this kind of thing on a weekend. You can't fight with this city. There's just too much going on in a city like this. So most of our things we do midweek, just so I know that people are free.
Right now, what are some of the days that you use during the week for some of these events? Would it be like a Monday or a Wednesday, or do you have anything coming up?
Yeah, our live events right now are on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
We have Wednesday night, June 12th. We're up at Uncommon Ground for dinner theater. We're going to have live comedy. We have sketch comedy. We have a DJ. We have a group coming that's going to do some live music and promote a couple of their videos that they made, some music videos that they made. Following week, we're back at Logan Theater for mainly that one's mostly a music show.
Okay.
We have live music coming in. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Going back to Mr. Black on some of his other films, I'm going to mention a few titles: Gruesome Discoveries, Sepultura, Revelations, and Iniquitous Interrogation.
Now, two of those that you mentioned are actually poems. I was writing dark erotic stories for Dark Angel magazine back in the 90s, and the idea came up to try to make them into movies. But as far as stories go, they're not exactly action-packed. They're more of a trip through somebody's mind. So, yeah, those two were actually done with a voiceover. And a guy in Brisbane called Joe Galar edited those. The first one I just did the voiceover, and we started capturing footage, and I got it off to him in Brisbane, and he edited that. The second one, we went to a spoken word night, and I had actors there acting out what I was doing, what I was reading. So those two are actually very fast sort of films. Now, what was the first one that you mentioned?
Gruesome Discoveries.
Gruesome Discoveries. That one was actually done as a found footage one.
Okay.
So I just grabbed the iPhone, and the concept with that one was very simple. I had some great makeup artists, so I got a whole lot of victims and put them in my place. And it's got great makeup in there, but it's not 100% found footage. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to act and film at the same time, especially because I wasn't that experienced. So I got somebody else with a steady cam to be behind me filming. So it's half the found footage and half the steady cam. So those three ones are actually incredibly quick film jobs that have been nicely edited.
Okay. Was there anyone that you've worked with any of these films that I've so mentioned that you've worked with before, or since, anyone worth mentioning that you would like to talk about?
Three people, really. It might end up being more as soon as I think of them, but I've done a lot of them with Trisha Davisha. Trisha had already made films and had a lot of experience, say, with editing and acting. And she's actually brought the game up for me quite a lot, because I've got her to bounce off with the acting and also for advice. So she did Kali Geisha Erotica Grotesque and Durga, which is her latest film, and she's done a few other films. So I'm acting with Trish again in 1 week's time on the next film. So you probably see her in about 2/3 of the films I've done. But I'd also give a shout out to Anastasia and to Vixie Tay, who are regulars in my films. In fact, Sime Argento. So those three, if Trish isn't available to do a film with me, then it'll end up being one of the other three that end up in the film as my co-star.
Okay, very cool. Going to mention a couple of other titles here. Camp Where the Heck Are We?
Yep.
Buried Alive and Malevolent Pursuit.
Okay, Malevolent Pursuit. That was Glenn Cook directed that. Now, Glenn has actually been with me on all of the films since we did just after Cannibal Barbecue. So Glenn's mainly known as a gaffer, but I quite often have him acting in the films,
Okay.
and because he's another one that's got his diploma of cinematography. Vixie has as well. I'm always picking their brains on the technical aspects. So that was the one straight after Cannibal Barbecue where I had the idea, let's do things really quickly. And I realized that the first problem is always setting up sound and getting good sound. So I actually did that as a narration, and I narrated it on the iPhone and got that to Glenn and said, okay, let's film it. But that idea, since then, we found that I couldn't do every single film as a narration. We've had to get sound in.
Okay. Any of the other two titles? Camp Where the Heck Are We?
Camp Where the Heck Are We? Totally different to Malevolent Pursuit. Whereas Malevolent Pursuit is a narration, and the whole thing is to get into the mind of a psycho killer. Camp Where the Heck Are We is just this schlocky, bad taste film about. It's to take the. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, you're allowed to swear or whatever.
Yeah. It's to take the piss out of political correctness. We've got all of these kids at a camp, and they're the underprivileged kids, so everything's supposed to be politically correct. And we're just taking the piss out of political correctness, and we've got schlocky, gory humor in it. So that one was done intentionally to be the worst taste movie that we've done.
And Buried Alive?
Which one?
Buried
Alive. I can't remember that one. I've got a feeling Buried Alive might be one that's on the cards to do.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not. It's actually one of the narrations from Obsessions of a Shattered Psyche. That's the one we did live as a spoken word.
Okay.
So, that one was interesting because we had a proper soundy there. We had the camera there, and I was really just expecting that we'd be on stage and it would be simple to film. But as John would attest, if he's done anything at his live nights, we've got people walking through it as we're going, people walking through, going to the bar. We've got people getting excited and getting in the way, taking photos.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked.
Totally understand. Now, going back to Mr. Davies for a moment. Now, you've mentioned that you work with bands and live shows. What are some of the local bands that you've had at some of your venues?
Oh boy. Let me get to my page. Let's see. We have Elias Mason as Cocoa Beach and Identity. Christina Catone from Honey and the 45s. We've had The Coils perform. We've had Christian Hurtado, who's Trust This Ghost. He's been with us 7 times, which is actually pretty awesome.
Nice.
We've got Andrew Palmer. We've got Grims Black Knight. We've got D Casual Hex. We've got Elizabeth Saad. Christopher Mondo and Earth Program has been with us. Johnny Lang has performed for us. David Arias from Avantist has performed. Philly D. Slim. We've got Andrew Caniglia of Redacted. We've got Mitten V. Fontaine as Wally Tusk. We've got Connor Plunkett as DJ Khan. June York as Queen Antimony, and that is just the tip of the iceberg, my friend.
Nice. I just figured I'd ask you about different aspects of your venues, so that it got a little bit of everything since I have both of you on. So, going back over to Mr. Black. How about Catch-22, Dark Metamorphosis, and a Message from God?
Okay. Catch-22 was once again a very quick film. The idea there was just for it to be totally pantomime with two cats. I just wanted two people dressed as cats. Me and Anastasia, we don't really look great like cats, but we spent a lot of time talking about exactly what cats do, from licking and purring and just trying to get down. The idea was, if we get down as human beings imitating cats, the way people go, oh God, my cat does that, that we'd come up with something fantastic. So I had a student come in to do the makeup. So I think she'd had about 3 months worth of experience and needed to make up the hours for getting her certificate. And I had a student cameraman come in, and it was really just to do very quickly, 3 hours filming, but probably pre-production. Like with most of these, when I talk about a short film, they've usually got a couple of weeks of pre-production in before you actually press the button to film. Now, the next one you mentioned after Catch-22,
Dark Metamorphosis.
Dark Metamorphosis. Oh yeah, it was another quick one. The guy that edited Catch-22 is Gerardo, who has done my best films. Now, Gerardo had approached me asking to do stuff, but I get people to do small jobs first and test them out. So Gerardo edited that, and then I thought, well, look, I'll trust him with the film. That was actually just a 1-minute narration. Originally did it for Trish, who wanted to enter a 1-minute film competition, and the time came and went, and then she wasn't interested. And I got Sime in to be my offsider on that. We just went to the park and got dressed up and punched around to the narration. And I thought, my God, Gerardo's got some pretty good ideas with the film there. He came with his crew. They all speak Italian, which is quite a different experience on set, because they all speak to each other in Italian. But yeah, aside from that, I just watched what their ideas were, where they wanted to place the camera, where I'd suggest where they had the drone. Oh, let's put the drone up there. Then they go, no, let's put the camera on the ground and you look directly at the camera. And I thought, this guy knows his stuff, and he's come through as being the best of the filmmakers that I'm working with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned A Message from God. Message from God had a lot of pre-production work in it. That was just done as a comedy. I wanted to get away from horror and just do a typical Aussie comedy that was a bit like Paul Hogan and Strop. Now, you've probably heard of Paul Hogan from Crocodile Dundee, but he was huge in Australia before he went to America from doing the Paul Hogan Show, which half of it was just comedy skits with him and Strop, and I wanted to get those sort of characters together and put them in a film.
Totally understand. Now, speaking on that note, I'll go back over to Mr. Davies. Now, you also mentioned that you did comedy during some of your live shows. Who are some of the local comedians that you've had at your genre, and Have there been other uh, comedians that have come from other areas?
Other areas a little bit. Mostly, we're doing Chicago area comedians.
Okay.
We haven't really branched out that much. If they are from outside the city, I'm not aware of it, unfortunately. But we do have, David Carter's helping us a lot. He's actually hosting or helping us host the Northern show when we're at the dinner theater at Uncommon Ground. He runs a thing called the Comedy Block for us, where he himself does a 10-minute set, and then he invites two of his comedian friends to come up, and each of them does 2-minute sets or 10-minute sets. I'm sorry. And it really just, opens up the show, kind of puts us in another category where we're not just sitting there watching films. The first 2.5 years or so, we were pretty much just watching films. And this adding the comedy to it really makes it feel more like a variety show. When you were in high school, and it just opens up the nights.
Now, would Sinema Obscura be open to other comedians from other areas coming in and doing comedy skits as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Our host for that evening is David Carter. We also have Dustin Pueller and the Mouth Breathers TV crew come in, and they do some sketch comedy, which is absolutely out of this world. I can't even say enough about those guys. They film or they record short films, and then they play off of it with the screen behind them. So I don't really know how to explain it, what they do, but it's like a live act mixed media with the film behind them, and it is absolutely mind blowing every single time.
Nice. Going back to Mr. Black and talking about The Road to Hell is still undefined, and Parental Duties.
Those two were done by Gerardo. So I mentioned him before, that he had come in and edited Catch 22, then did a 1-minute one. Then he did The Road to Hell, I think, next. And that was just mind-blowing. Just seeing his work and what he did with that. And Parental Duties was the second one. So both of those are actually sci-fi, though. The Road to Hell is steampunk. It's got a particular look. My idea was I need to, because it's all low budget, I thought if I approached the steampunk community, I might be able to get a whole lot of people with amazing props and costumes. And old friends came through, but everybody else in the steampunk community was too precious. So the old friends did have enough costumes and stuff to lend and props that we're just able to go out to Elaine and film that and get something really good together. With Parental Duties, that one is where I just realized Gerardo is a genius, because we had our location already set. We knew where we were going for it. And as we were driving there was probably the worst storm of last year, and the roads were flooded. It was just a nightmare. And anybody else would have said, okay, we give in, we're going. And Gerardo just said to me, I know somewhere else. And when we got there, it was undercover, but there was nothing there. And then him and his guys just start running around picking up rubbish and crap everywhere and made a whole set out of nothing. They also set up a gazebo where the makeup artist got to work. We were surprised the makeup artist got there in the flood, but when you watch the film, the makeup really does help set it off. So that's pretty important. The fact that we actually managed to film it when half of Melbourne was flooded out, the roads were cut off, even trying to drive out of there just to go for dinner later on, the water's up halfway on the wheels of the car. So I just realized this is the filmmaker that beats every other filmmaker that I work with, but I'm not knocking the other filmmakers. They're all good in their own way. But you always get one person that is just head and shoulders above the rest.
Totally understand. And moving on to Life, Love, and Death and Sex Robot.
Okay. Now, those are actually the two filmmakers on those are both excellent. Life, Love, and Death was filmed at my place. With that one, I wanted to get every time I'd been going to short film nights. There's always one film that was always better than mine, and then I'm better than the rest. But always one person beating me, and I thought, not the same person, different people every time. Never quite the best. And I thought, what's going wrong? And I thought, some of these people have got stop-start animation. They've got all of these things. When you watch the film, all of the animations, you know exactly what they are immediately. I've got a talking garbage bin, and you can see that it's me just moving the bin. And it's that sort of really cheap sort of thing. But it works. The idea behind that one, though, anything I say about it's actually going to destroy the storyline. But the script from that was just based on a metaphysical concept that I hadn't seen anybody put out there. Now I can't say what it is. And so I had two thoughts that came in at the same time. Wow, what if we had a film and that happened? And then how can I get some animation into this? Now, with Sex Robot, in my opinion, is exactly what you see. It's not deep and meaningful like Life, Love, and Death. It's actually straight out in your face, but there was an idea behind it. My idea was, why are people buying sex robots? Technology goes wrong all of the time. Just look at us trying to set up this chat tonight and how long it took. And why would you want to get intimate with your privates with a piece of technology when something can go wrong?
Oh, sometimes technology does go wrong, but I know I had faith in my audio technabilities. So, but in any case, moving on to Spinning a Yarn and Precinct 13 Has Fallen, which I believe you asked me how your audio was on that at the time that you were editing that, correct?
Yeah. When Precinct 13 Has Fallen came back, I've got a slight hearing impediment, so I reckon I hear about 15% less than I should, and the speakers on the computer aren't going well. And I thought, the audio doesn't sound right on this. And so I had that go back, and it took 11 months before they actually fixed the audio. So that one was actually done 11 months ago and only just came out last week. Yeah, that was actually also filmed at my place just in the backyard. And that one really relies heavily on the special effects. Darby that did that is an amazing filmmaker, and he just spent a lot of time on every shot from every gun, the sparks that come off it, the actual smoke that comes off it. So it was a simple storyline with the twist at the end. Now, the other one you mentioned, Spinning a Yarn, we got rained out on that one too, and that did cause some problems. We had everything set up to do, and this one was just a simple comedy done along the lines of, did you ever get Carry On films in America?
Are you talking about that UK comedy troupe from...
Yep.
Like Carry On Nurse, Carry On Doctor?
Yeah, it was to be done in that style.
Okay.
So, although we don't have nurses and doctors and that, we've just got two people dressed up as spiders and one person dressed up as a cockroach. The bawdy jokes and the way it's done was to be done in that fashion.
Kind of like Benny Hill style.
Like which style?
Benny Hill style.
Yeah, very. In fact, the bad costumes is very Benny Hill. Uh, uh, but yeah, we got rained out. We actually set up, and if there were two storms last year that were crazy, this one was just a 1 hour storm or a 2 hour storm that came through, and I think they called that one Stormageddon, and we could see it coming, and yeah, basically, instead of saying, "Well, that's the end of it, we'll have to do it another time," Trish said, "Look, I've got a green screen," so we filmed it in front of the green screen. But yeah, they're a little bit disappointed that there's some shadows in there and they weren't rotoscoped out. And I was a bit disappointed that we got all of our mid shots, our close ups, etc. And what we've actually got is just a film with almost just one shot going all the way through. So yeah, that one I've never promoted. I haven't liked it. I shouldn't say anything about it. But everybody else that sees it, because they're used to going to see live shows, that's how exactly how you see a live show. So they like it, and I don't.
Totally understand. Now, are there any other productions that you would like to talk about? In fact, when you first contacted me, you were talking about something called Horror House, which was, uh, I believe, something like an Elvira kind of a show that.
Oh
that
yeah,
tried
that,
to.
that that was all filmed about. I think we finished filming that a year ago now, or even longer. And it's been in editing because the first editor found that he'd gotten himself a job. So he just finished the first episode, which I've got the first episode ready to go, and he'd gotten a bit done on the rest. Then the second editor came in, started working on it, and pushed the bar a bit forward. And then he got full-time work. And so he's still overseeing it, and there's a third editor in there now. So it's been taking a very long time, but it will eventually come out. And that one's had more money spent on it than the rest of the films together, because just the makeup for Count Fungula, with the ears and everything, that would be about $100. And with Trish wanting costumes, I think she was putting me out for $500 on costumes an episode. So, and that one's, if it comes down to schlocky humor that just is nobody's going to ever believe, that, I mean, we've got every, well, we've got body parts being sliced off, we've got farts, we've got vomit, we've got snot, we've got babies coming out, being born. We've actually got puppets. We've got puppets made for it. So in a way, that was just a really big production that should have come out a year ago. It'll still come out, but just later than planned.
So, how many episodes did you end up putting into Horror House then?
6 all up.
Okay, and where do you eventually plan on broadcasting this, or where do you hope to find an avenue for this particular series of?
Oh, the original plan on that was that we were going to get it onto Channel 31, which is like public access for Melbourne. But since then to now my stuff's being shown on cable in the United States and also broadcast. This could never be shown on broadcast. But what I'm getting from the United States is so much bigger than, if we just put it on Channel 31 in Melbourne. And one of the differences with Melbourne, there's 2 stations that call themselves Community, but they charge people to go on them.
Okay.
So as well as charging them, they want those people to bring in sponsors. A sponsor is an advertiser, somebody that's advertising on the channel. Well, I don't want to be roped into being their de facto advertising salesperson. I used to do that for a living. They actually expect that I'm going to start hopping on the phone and calling up 200 places to get one sale for them, selling their advertising and paying them to go on, while also paying $600 per show. It's like, no bloody way. That's not even community. I mean, what's I'm supposed to say nice things about our community because they community TV because they support the community. They're not. They're getting money from the government. They're selling advertising and they're ripping off the actual filmmakers themselves.
No,
Filmmakers
that's
shouldn't have to pay to play.
No, they shouldn't. But it is the way of the film world these days in some avenues. But I'm glad that there are some avenues like Sinema Obscura that is out there gives them the time of day. While on note, did you have any other project or anything else that you would like to speak about while we're on the air, Mr. Black?
Well, I've only got the feature film, Badass Bunyip, which is being done by Gerardo. So the feature film will come out probably in about 3 months' time. So, yeah, the main ones really are Horror House, the feature film. There's a documentary. Now, this will be of interest to John because the documentary is on short film nights like the ones that he puts on in Chicago because we have short film nights here too.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, well, it's all filmed. It's just being edited at the moment. That one, we're hoping to get on to slightly more commercial TV. There's no swearing or anything. It's just something saying, hey, look, here's all of these enthusiastic filmmakers. They're indie filmmakers. Here is the night. Here are their hopes and dreams. And here's a little bit of the films that they put on and just giving a taste of what goes on. And it's called A Night at the Movies Indie Style.
Awesome. So at this moment, I'm going to let Mr. Davies talk about where you can find Sinema Obscura and some of the direct avenues that you can find them in Chicago through. So, John, why don't you tell me about where we can find you or locate you?
Well, I think our strength right now is in the TV show, and that's here on local access cable, channel 19, 11 p.m. Chicago time. Can TV is the name of the network, and they're gracious enough to let us do what we're doing. We also have live shows every second Wednesday at Uncommon Ground on 1401 West Devon. And every third Wednesday down here at Logan Theater on Milwaukee Avenue. That's closer to me. So we are all over the place right now. In addition, we have what is it? The fourth Wednesday. It looks like we're doing the micro cinema events at 6740 in conjunction with the new 400 theaters. And going back to what we were saying before, Sinema Obscura is 100% free. Our shows are free. We don't charge filmmakers to join. So if that's something that you as a filmmaker, you're listening, excites you, please send us your stuff.
Awesome. And going back over to Mr. Black, where can we find you? I mean, I know we can normally find you on Facebook, but you fly under the flag banner of David Black Productions, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. The one place I put all of the films that are out is on YouTube, so that's under Davis Black, Darvis Black. That'll be easy enough to find on a search because there's no other Darvises there. Davis was actually a nickname because I was in Darkness Visible. So DAR from Darkness, VIS for Visible. And when Facebook you had to use your real name, they locked my old account.
Totally understand. So in any case, I appreciate both of you gentlemen being on this morning. I loved hearing about both your history and some of what you provide. So hopefully, filmmakers out there are able to hear this and know that this particular genre or venue is available to them. So thank you both for your patience, and I'm glad that we were able to get this recorded live and out there for you guys. So I do this all for free myself, so it's kind of like we all help each other.
Oh, all of my movies are out there for free, and although I pay some of the people that are on the movies, because you got to cover people's costs, I wouldn't charge any actors or anyone for any of this.
Totally understand. So on that note, I'm going to let you guys say goodnight to the folks out there, and I think we'll end this or interview. So thank you for coming on. Say goodnight or good afternoon.
Thanks for having me on the show, and it was great hearing from John, because we've only spoken on Facebook. It's the first time I've heard his voice.
Yeah, same here, David. Great to meet you over the phone or whatnot. David, also great to meet you. Thank you for having us on. I really appreciate it.
Definitely, man. Now, this interview will be on YouTube for the time being, but I will be putting it with a cool ass intro and whatnot later on, and this will also be eventually open on Spotify once I get my entire show mapped out, because I've got tons of interviews that I got to put up to kind of backlogged on getting the show up and running, but I'm working on it. So it's work in progress. So, but in any case, everyone like, share, and subscribe, and good night, everyone, or good afternoon.